Note this is a hybrid meeting, so we will have residents and council members and city staff both here in attendance as well as virtually. Courtney, would you do the call to order and a roll call, please?
Yes, Councilmember Wisner Slivka, Councilmember Andonian, and Councilmember Hakamovich are present.
I will have a comment from Councilmember Olson, which I'll read later, which will explain his absence. And Councilmember Sinwell is not here due to a medical reason, and so he won't be joining us tonight. Section 1 of the agenda includes our rules concerning our rules of order and public participation. And when we get to section 3 on public comment, for those online, please use the raise your hand feature to get my attention and I will call on you. There are, as you can see, there's lots of you here in the council chambers tonight. There's also, I noticed, more coming here virtually. So if you have something to say tonight, we will make sure we get to all of it. We do have a sign-up sheet for those who wish to speak, or in the alternative, just raise your hand to get my attention and I'll work through this. Section 2 of the agenda is the approval of tonight's agenda. Are there any comments on the agenda, or do I have a motion to approve it?
Looking at the agenda, I don't see that.
I don't understand what.
It's a section for this public comment.
Well, it's not there, but I'm going to ask for approval of the agenda, subject to the change, I guess. You're right, I'll see it here. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda is subject.
Sorry, Tom, like it's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda, so it's all right to ask for it.
I'm just asking. Question. If we don't approve, sorry. Oh,
Excuse me.
it is possible to modify the agenda after.
It's okay to deduct, but not to add.
Thank you.
Okay, so do I have a, let's go through and approve the agenda for those that are here. Do I have a motion or discussion? I don't know. I'm sitting here waiting.
I move to approve the agenda.
Okay, so the motion, second. Seconded by Councilmember Andonian. Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, then we'll move on. In this case, section 2, public comment. I see a note here. Councilmember Hakamovich, do you have something to say?
Yeah. I'm Councilmember Dean Hakamovich, and I'd like to thank the mayor for reaching out and informing the community about this meeting. There's an item on the agenda regarding the potential increase of the number of council seats. Ahead of the public comment, I want to make clear that the council is unlikely to consider increasing the number of council seats in this evening's meeting. From what I understand, it's no longer necessary. And I want to explain that because it's really easy to lose the plot here. The mayor and council are here to serve residents. And there are 3 pieces to that at play here. 1, an effective city administrator is essential to address the council's primary concern, the city's budget crisis and its financial sustainability. 2, the agenda item is there because many residents and the majority of the city council have for some time been trying to get the mayor to address their concerns with the effectiveness of the city administrator. Last, to his credit, the mayor has been in private discussions about replacing the current city administrator. Given these efforts that the mayor's already made, it makes sense to give the mayor more time for those discussions so we can get back on track to address the shared goals of many city residents and the majority of the council. I'm not sure if you wanted to add to that.
Mayor and I have been working on the resolution to this topic over the last couple of weeks. It's not an easy arrival point to reach, but I have confidence that we can get there. Engaged in the discussion and some emails, and I don't want to speak out of turn. If the mayor would wish to comment on that, I defer to him.
I'm sitting here wondering, why are we having this meeting tonight? So, as you know, yes, you and I have been having conversations about resolving the issues. It's a lot broader issue than simply replacing the city administrator. We have a huge problem with the divisiveness that is being caused by members of our council today. And until we can all find a way to work together, we're going to continue to have the same debates, whether it's over the city administrator or whether it's over other people. So I'm not really sure the rest of what you're trying to accomplish tonight. This is your agenda. You put it together. So I guess I'll leave it open for you to work through this. As I said, I'm still not understanding what the purpose of this meeting tonight is. If we're not going to start, if we're going to sit and go talk some more, we can adjourn and move on and do that. We take care of the reconsideration of the veto and move on and postpone the meetings if that's what you wish to do. But other than that, I have nothing. I don't know what else to say. I will read a statement from Councilmember Olson, however.
Was there anything else about the agreement under discussion that you wanted to share with the community or not?
I think that it's the mayor's place to disclose any of that information.
Could you speak up, please?
Yeah, could you speak up? I mean, you're sitting there just chatting away and nobody can hear you.
It is the
Be a
mayor-
man, speak up.
Let's keep it civil. More than mayor. Our discussion.
I'll reserve that for later. So. Is there anything else that you wish to say? What are you looking for? I don't understand what the purpose of all this is at this point, except to delay one of the items that's on the agenda. So.
I think the purpose was helping the community understand that you already worked through an agreement regarding the current city administrator's departure, and now we're just working through the rest of the terms. But you should go right ahead with the rest of the agenda, and then we can get back to that later.
We have to wait to get to that point. We will be there in a moment here. So. So, as I said, I have a message from Councilmember Olson that I will read. Who says, to my fellow council members and the mayor and Clyde Hill residents, first of all, we should not be having this special meeting today. I made council members Akamovich and Andonian, along with other council members and staff, aware that I was not able to attend because of my scheduled flight at this time. The nature of this agenda should have all council present, as well as a longer notice for residents, especially since many of our residents are traveling for winter break. The scheduled meeting for the budget vote was postponed because Councilmember Wisner-Slivka was not able to attend. Why was I not shown the same courtesy? The answer is that the instigators of this meeting are aware that I am strongly against their attempts to change their government, and that is why they're moving quickly to have this meeting without me in attendance. If I were voting along with them, they would have postponed this meeting. Regarding the attacks on the job of the city administrator, Councilmember Akamovich is a bomb thrower with no solutions of his own. He never mentions the city can only increase taxes by 1% annually. So with the inflation that we have experienced these past several years, the budget is strained. This is not the fault of the administrator. Instead of spending time trying to fire the administrator, we should be continuing our journey to balance the budget. This attempt to remove the administrator is corrupting the process in an attempt to gain power at the city to change ordinances. Our residents deserve a lot better than this. Voting to remove the city administrator is a radical attempt to throw the city into chaos. Our city runs smoothly as is. And we're working through a process to bring our expenses and revenue into alignment. But removing the administrator now jeopardizes all of that. There is a cynical attempt to override the mayor's veto by adding more planted council members that are in line with this movement, a movement that the residents have already voted against. I'm therefore hereby voting against adding more members to the Clyde Hill City Council, and I am encouraging the mayor to veto removing the city administrator. That was from council member. All right. So moving on to the next part of this, which would be public comment. I know there's a lot of you ready to make comments. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read the initial information we need. So this is an opportunity for brief comments to the city council about items not on the agenda for a public hearing. There are no public hearings scheduled for this meeting. The city of Clyde Hill welcomes public comments. Members of the public will be limited to 3 minutes for their public comments. Dean, we will have a timer up on this so we can make sure everybody is at 3 minutes.
There you go.
There we are. Very good. And they are to be focused on issues solely related to city business and should be made in a respectful fashion. This is a time for individual commenter only and cannot be transferred to or combined with any speakers. So council members may or may not respond directly at the meeting. When called, please state your name and if you're a resident of Clyde Hill for the record. And so if you wish to speak, raise your hand. We'll just kind of work our way through. We'll start with you right here in the front, sir.
Hi, I'm Dan Haddis, and I've been a resident of Clyde Hill for 10 years. I'm embarrassed to say I have not been paying attention until now. What's going on in politics here. This is the first time I've come to the city hall. And my impression over the last 10 years, where the city was run pretty well, in terms of issues that always came up, including city administrator, everything went well. Then I find out through a neighbor that we're having meetings called at non-standard times, it seems like, so that people don't show up, so that it seems kind of like a coup. What I want to understand is who here is appointed versus elected. If that's possible, maybe Mayor, you could tell me, because I'm trying to understand, are there some people on this council who are not elected?
Among the council members here today, we have 2 appointed council members. Councilmember Wisner Slivka was appointed when I became mayor to replace my term. And then with the resignation of Councilmember Miramoto, who is also here tonight, Councilmember Indoni appointed.
So
Councilmember Collins.
I don't know the laws and the rules here, but it seems like we should never have appointed people on the council. And if something comes up, we have an election, because you people who are appointed here have just been creating chaos. And I understand that, sometimes it seems like you can burn this place down to get real change. But this is like basic stuff, like things that we need for the city to run, for permits to be approved, or for issues to come up. And for a political reason to do this, and then to have the nerve to do it keep having them on non-standard days, it just doesn't smell good. But besides that, you guys, who are you? You were appointed, you were not elected by us. You have a lot of nerve then to try to expand the council. You guys, I'm going to make sure that, I spend money to knock you guys out. You are not going to get back on the council. I appreciate what this city has been doing, and what the mayor has been doing. I stand by the mayor, and this is just really upsetting. I just can't believe that something like this would happen in the city. I'm very happy, regardless of what side, the residents here are on. I'm very happy to see so many people here, because I'm embarrassed that I didn't until now, and I obviously should have. I'm certainly going to be more involved after this. Thank you.
My name is Pat Bruzek. I've been a resident of Clyde Hill since 1976. I have seen a lot of council controversy, mayor controversies. I have not been as involved as I would like to be, and I am changing that. I have come to several meetings, and what I have seen is we've been working, if I understand correctly, about 1.5 years on our budget, which is not good. and we need to cut the expenditure. What I have seen is the mayor, sorry, tabling things a lot, having no response, not saying, I'm not going to say I agree or disagree. So things have come to a screeching halt at the meetings I've attended. So I think we all are adults in this room, and obviously there's a split on the council, and there has been in the past. So I think everybody has to work a lot harder than we have. So the last meeting I went to, there were two gentlemen from the community that ran very successful businesses. And they said, the only way to solve this problem is to cut an employee. I don't know who, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen the budget. I don't know what's going on. I have run a business, but I know that you can't operate on a negative level for very long. So something has to be done. And that's all I have to say. So, no.
Stay in the front.
Hi, my name's Carl Pachota. I've been a resident for 14 years. I can't believe it, but it's the case. Thank you for the opening statements. I'm going to modify what I wanted to say. It's much easier to say now. First off, I wanted to say that I'd like to make some statements that I believe we all agree we should have a professionally managed city. There's been some thought that if we got rid of the administrator, everything would be on top of the mayor's office as a volunteer and doesn't have the time to manage the city. I believe there's general agreement that we do want a professionally managed city. So it's not like removing that as a position. I want to make that clear. Also, I don't believe anybody wants to see a reduction in services. We're looking for a solution for the budget, which is a combination of cost reductions and revenue increases, not reduction of our services. And just on the subject of the budget, I like living in Clyde Hill, and if we were to become insolvent, we'd be part of Bellevue, and I don't want that as much as I like Bellevue. And then our staffers would lose their job. It would not be a good thing. So just to reiterate, I think the solution is a combination of revenue and cost cutting. I really feel that the administrator's job is to own this process, to lead it. We have a financial commission and these other citizen groups, but it's really the city administrator that needs to lead these conversations forward. I have not seen that from last year, so I hope that that becomes a very clear performance metric for the city administrator. Pardon me, my thoughts are a little bit ruffled because of how things kind of changed today. I'll end by saying I'm very appreciative to all you guys working together and discussing behind the scenes to try to solve this. This is not easy. I know you guys all have targets on you right now. I really appreciate it. So thank you. I'm very happy to see some progress behind the scenes.
Way in the back, Councilmember Miramoto. Hi, Kim.
Hi, my name's Kim Muramoto. I am a citizen of Clyde Hill for about 2.5 more days. That said, I was born in Clyde Hill. I went to Clyde Hill Elementary School, in Bill High School. My father was here before there even was a Clyde Hill. Tonight, I'm angry, sad, and concerned. I'm sad because of the divide between the council members and the mayor. I find it hard to believe that this kind of divide serves the benefit of the citizens of Clyde Hill. When I served here, the citizens were my only concern. It's not clear to me that this is the case tonight. I'm sad because rather than moving forward with the business of the people, this group is deadlocked over the future of the city administrator. And I'm angry. I'm angry because 2 or 3 council members will fundamentally change. If I thought the motive was to enhance the leadership and the brain trust to meet the needs of the people, I would be happy. But this action is only to override the mayor's veto. Okay. The citizens have no voice, no vote here, at least not until the next election. And I hope they will vote with their conscience. I don't believe this is about leadership, but about a vendetta. And lastly, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the future of the city. There's a tremendous amount of work to do in the next few months, not the least of which is housing and a major budget issue. I thought the council and the mayor were on a good path to solve the budget issue, but this action will only cost the city more money in severance and move the institutional knowledge and background needed. The delay may be for weeks or months. This is not the time for ready, fire, aim. I'm most concerned about the potential long-term consequences of this action. Reminded of the situation with the city of Medina a few years ago, when they terminated the contract with the chief of police. The action resulted in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit and settlement that all but destroyed the city's financial reserves. It took a levy lift to keep the city solvent. But this is not the way to solve a budget crisis, guys. With that said, I urge the council not to expand to 7 or terminate the contract with the city administrator, but rather to come together to solve the real issues of housing and the budget. Thank you.
Spencer?
Spencer Hanlon, lived in Clyde Hill since 1988, born in 76. I moved back here to raise my children. And the first thing I want to talk about is that I have had my issues with the city administrator. The city administrator and the city attorney both basically violated my rights to due process. I applied for a permit, which was denied. I filed an appeal. The city administrator insisted that for some reason I didn't have the right to bring it to the city council. And when I talked to the city attorney, he could provide no legal authority to back up the idea that he could arbitrarily advise the city administrator that this particular appeal doesn't go to the council. I didn't like that Mr. Rolla did not appear to be focusing on how can I help the citizens of the town I work for. I didn't like that he was blindly following an attorney who was advising him with no legal basis. And I've got over 22 jury trials under my belt, so that's something I know about reading statutes. My hedge got taken down, my privacy is gone, my special needs child still cries over the fact that this hedge is gone that he loved. It was a beautiful thing for the neighborhood, it cleaned the air. But I made it through that process without being enemies with Mr. Rolla. And I still talk to him, and he still talks to me. And while we had some bad things in the past, we can still communicate. I don't agree with what he did, but he's still working for our town. If you don't like his performance, fine. That's okay. If you want him fired, then you can run for mayor and you can fire him yourself. But what's been going on the last few weeks is not okay. I know you all personally. I like you all personally. I said this before. I hope we're still friends, even if we disagree. But calling these meetings, eliminating a position because you don't like the person makes us look bad. It makes you look bad. Even threatening to pack the council. I talked to at least 20 people who would never be involved, and it was an automatic reaction. Are you kidding me? Are they nuts? Is this a joke? I'm not happy we're here. I don't think it ever should have gotten here. So again, I've said this to you all personally before. I know that you're sitting on the council because you care about our town, but I'm imploring you to go back behind closed doors and learn how to communicate. And if you need to hire a facilitator to do it, please do it. We are all relying on you guys to get through this. With 15 seconds left, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Mack, my 5th grade teacher listening right now. And I also want to give a shout out to Lynn Adams because she threw the word ruckus into her comments. Thank you for listening.
My name is Mimi Ramsey, and I've been a resident of Clyde Hill for 10 years. It's really hard for me to speak publicly because I'm not a front stage person. I'm very concerned about what I've heard going on last week. I don't think this is the right process to try and pack the council with people that agree with you. I'm glad you are changing the agenda so it doesn't come tonight, but I'm very upset that 2 appointed members have so much power in our community. I understand your residents and you care, but let the voters have a bigger voice. And I can't agree with you more. If you don't like what's going on, run for mayor and change it yourself within the bounds of what the citizens have approved and voted for and reaffirmed again. Thank you.
What are the bylaws for appointed members?
What are the bylaws?
I mean, is there, I mean, what is the policy or the?
State law, when there's a vacancy,
Right.
because someone has sold their house and is no longer a resident, or someone has taken another position.
Right.
Then the city council runs a process to appoint someone so that it's their current mayor Friedman was initially an appointee. We don't have appointees. We don't tell appointees, you know, you're not really allowed to talk or vote. They are full-fledged empowered members. So we are following the state law in the process.
Makes sense.
Anybody else out here? Go ahead.
I'm gonna get up and face you because I think it's really down my back area. Anyway, I'm old, but my head's screwed on. I'm Nancy Domkohler, and this is my 58th year in Clyde Hill in the same house. And back in the 80s, I served on the planning commission and did the original interior design in this building. And so I've been through quite a few things going on in the town. We had problems with this residents hating the mayor, and we went through all of that. But the rumors that are going around Clyde Hill these days are not very good, folks. And if it ain't broke, just, if there's nothing wrong with it, leave it alone. The rumors that are going around that this is a big power grab, and it doesn't look good. And I think that we need to have a girl Friday or somebody in the office here, an administrator that looks over things. I want you guys to lay it out here. Why are you wanting to change this? This is the second time that we're going through this thing. You wanted to get rid of the council agenda. You wanted to make it like Bellevue, where we went through that and we voted on it, if I remember correctly, that you didn't want to, you wanted to have just a council where we elected that. And then a mayor was chosen by the council. This is the way it's done in Bellevue. Seattle has it just like this is set up, where we vote for a mayor and we vote for a council. But I want you to lay your ideas out here, because everybody's sitting at home playing with their phones, checking out whatever, the latest things going on, and we didn't know anything about what's going on. And if I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. But we'd like to know just what is the issue here? Why are you pushing this on to the populace of Clyde Hill? We don't feel that it's a fair situation. Thank you very much.
Carl.
My name's Carl Little, and I'm a resident. Am I allowed to ask questions?
You can ask them. We may or may not answer.
Okay, I understand you went on vacation. Did you go on a vacation recently? Were you gone? Did council vote to remove the administrator while you were?
No, I was here.
You were here? And it really seems to me that the divisiveness is very ineffective. And the bottom line with making the mayor's job impossible will be an increase in the cost of doing business for the city, because he is an elected official, but he doesn't get paid. And the only way for somebody to want to take that miserable job is to get paid. And that's going to increase costs. That's the end result of trying to make life miserable on the council. So try and get along. Try and put your best foot forward and do what's right. And if you can't come to an agreement, it's my understanding that there's a reserve fund, is there? How much is in the reserve fund?
About 3 or 4 years city run rate.
So this year.
How about, let me rephrase that. $5 million, of which we keep 1.2 million as an insurance policy.
So this year,
we're not going to come to a sudden death situation. We can try and work together to solve the problem. And if you can't, because we're talking about 1% here or 0.5% there, you do the best you can, set some goals for next year, and let's solve the problem. But don't make the mayor's life so miserable that we're paying for somebody, because we clearly can't afford that. Thank you.
Anybody else out here in the audience? Go ahead.
I'm David Smith, and I've been here for 27 years, and I'm a resident. I'd like to hear what you have to say, Mayor, instead of saying, hey, I'll talk to you somewhere else. Why don't you tell us where you are on this thing? Because we're all here, and it would really be nice to hear where you stand on this and what's going on and why we haven't done much with the budget and all these other things. Because at the end of the day, you're the head of the mountain right now, and you said, well, I'll talk about it later. It's again, putting it away instead of telling us what's going on. So would you just step up and tell us what's going on
All
in
right,
your
I
mind?
will, I will make my comments now, if that's what you wish. So, my view is the success of the city is working together to address problems if we focus on the quality of life of all of our residents. It's clear that working together is not happening, as you're speaking to it already tonight. And tonight's meeting, I expect to be another example of the divisiveness of the city. When I ran for mayor, I ran on the expectation I would bring the council, staff, advisors, and me together. That hasn't happened. The actions of the council to eliminate the city administrator position are dangerous to our city. The public wasn't asked what they thought. Tonight's actions continue that trend, which are 3 council members taking control of the city. This goes with the attempt to pack the council that we've heard about tonight by increasing the council size to 7, which would create an expanded council majority comprised of 4 unelected council members. And these actions are wrong. They threaten the city. They threaten our residents. You don't make changes like this in a vacuum. You don't make changes like this without a plan. You ensure that you evaluate what's important to our residents, and you ensure that we act on behalf of the residents. So let's really look at what the problem is. The budget, the city leadership, those are symptoms of the real problem we have here. The problem is divisiveness. Councilmember Hakomovich and his council majority are the primary cause. Let's take a look at this. If you look at the 2025 budget as an example, we passed a budget in December. We agreed on a plan to work together to address future budget deficits. And it was an agreement. I guess everybody agreed, but this Councilmember Hakomovich and his group. They now ignore the group agreement, and they continue to take steps to sabotage the process that we agreed on. And now that process is in jeopardy. Last year, they asked me to conduct a formal review of the performance and capability of our city administrator. I spoke with staff. I spoke with council members. I spoke with others who worked with him, notwithstanding the fact that I was working directly with the city administrator during that time. I then presented a detailed report to the council with a conclusion he was a capable leader. Actually, what was really intended at that time was for me to agree with them. And they asked me to do it. They wanted me to fire the administrator, and I didn't agree. Their request was a ruse. They simply expected me to agree with them, and I didn't. Our city administrator I found him to be a knowledge and capable leader of our city staff. Tonight's council agenda, as well as recent council agendas, especially earlier this month, is filled with attempts to find any items that would be disruptive to the city. There's an attempt to find dirt and poke at me, to poke at our hardworking staff, to even poke at other council members who disagree with them, all hoping to make others look bad and simply to get their way. This is not working together. This is a cause of the divisiveness. I don't understand how this benefits the quality of life of our residents here in Clyde Hill. That's our key goal. Councilmember Hakomovich's newsletter adds to that disruption in spades. What at one time might have been an admirable effort to communicate to residents of what is happening in our city is now an opinion piece that is nasty and negative. This newsletter is another tool that divides our city. It shouldn't. It should be a useful tool. We should work together. We should debate issues. We should come to a conclusion, and then we all move forward. But not Councilmember Hakomovich, not his crew. He clearly refuses to do this, and now he's been able to assemble a council majority. And now I agree, he seeks to control the city. Councilmember Hakomovich has often commented that council sets policy and the mayor staff executes. But it really appears that when he doesn't like what the mayor council does, he seeks to destroy rather than constructively working to improve or correct. Councilmember Hakomovich is now beginning the process to change ordinances to personally benefit him. He's already sent in another council member to talk to staff to suggest we take steps to begin to change the private lane ordinance 17.44 to address the turnaround requirement. I can only guess he thinks this will benefit him in his ongoing personal dispute with his neighbor. As suggested, this is a change that only helps him. And to accomplish this change, he wants to use city resources, including staff, planning commission, council, and our attorney, or city attorney for this. But it's improper. It's clearly a personal conflict. So I think my words tonight will logically lead to more attacks on me, and I suppose on to others. This doesn't have to be the case. Our common goal should be to work together, to find a common ground, to make decisions on behalf of our residents. We should look forward and not live in the past. We should treat our associates with respect. Clyde Hill is a wonderful city. Our quality of life here is outstanding. It's second to none. I keep seeing various polls on the internet that list Clyde Hill as one of the best cities to live in. We should work to keep it that way. We owe this to our residents and not the dangerous divisiveness and disruption that I see happening today. There's my statement. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Anybody online? If you push to raise your hand, we'll let you speak.
I would like to say something.
Mhm.
My name is Linda Boyd. I've lived here with my husband and family for over 30 years. And I'm just thinking about the time of the election. And I remember in the last session that Mr. Hachamovich wanted, excuse my pronunciation, wanted the city to pay for a fire meter or something, a fire hydrant, or to pay for something so you could put your heater. I can't remember what it was, but I do remember that it was extremely inappropriate. And then you became a member of the council. And I think that there are members of this council, Councilmember Andonian and Councilmember Slivka, that forgotten that they are here to serve the public. We're a quiet little town. We want to have our services. We pay our taxes in spades. And we need to have council members who check with us before any major propositions. And I don't remember Mr. Andonian saying anything to me before the election that he thought it would be a good thing to undermine the mayor and to remove a city position. So I'm very disappointed in at least 3 members of the council. I want the city to be run smoothly. I want to be informed. I want council members to check with the public so that they are representing the public, not their own personal interests and not their own personal axe to grind. I don't know what the process might be for removing certain members of the council, but I want to stand here today and express my complete lack of confidence in several members of the council. I thank the mayor for his action to veto the council. And I just want to say, this is such a disgrace. This is such a disgrace. And we need to think about what happens in the city, what kind of city we want to be, what kind of services we want, and how we're going to move forward. I'm actually less concerned about the budget at this point than people acting in extremely childish and irresponsible ways.
Behind you, Jared, I'm sorry, excuse me.
I'm Barbara Reese, and I won't tell you how long I've lived here because then you'd know I'm older than all of you put together. But I'm really appalled by the behavior of the city council. As such, that I really think if they're that unhappy, they should either be asked to resign or they should resign themselves. It's a disgrace. I don't want to be represented by any of you. I am so disgusted. I stand with the mayor all the way, and I stand with his veto. And I think you should be appalled at constantly trying to undermine the mayor, whether it's the last mayor or this mayor, whoever it is, I don't care. I don't think you could work with anybody until you sat at the pinnacle of a 7-man council and really just made yourself kings and queens of the council. It's just, it's disgusting to me. It's appalling. So I think you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
I'm Jared Wheeler. I've lived here, I don't know, 35, 36 years. I'm also on the planning commission. I was appointed commissioner. It's the only way you get to be on the planning commission. And I've been involved with this city extensively since 2018 in terms of working with the city administration. So I have my own views on this. What disturbs me the most about tonight, because I respect everyone can have their own beliefs. They can be as strong as my belief, even though they can be entirely different. I appreciate what all people here are doing, whether they're hired, whether they're appointed, or whether they're elected. But I think it's much better to separate performance from personal attacks. I'm as angry and as upset, I did not plan to speak tonight, as Mr. Mormoto is, but for in some ways different reasons. These personal attacks that I've heard them from you, Mr. Mayor. I haven't heard them from the council members. I'm not here to judge. I don't want to be a judgment person. I just said I don't want to do that. But I'm really disappointed by people acting on rumors. I'm really disappointed by people not taking accountability to know what's going on in the city and ask. If you've heard a rumor, rather than come here and judge people and speak down to them, I would ask you to check out your rumor and see if you're hearing both sides of the story, because there's always two sides to the story. I'm really disappointed in that. I feel that this meeting is a lot of effort was put in to get everybody here. And I've heard a lot of things that represent rumors that are not fact. They're not fact. The issue is about how do we stop the budget? And the other issue is a legitimate concern about someone who's a pretty high dollar amount in that budget and their performance. I haven't heard personal attacks, but I've heard a lot of personal attacks tonight. And I've heard them places I certainly did not expect. And that to me is bad. I support a change for performance. I've fired a lot of people. I've hired a lot of people. I've had conversations with them. I don't know why somebody would want to work here. In December of 2 years ago, a motion was made by then council member Friedman and seconded by then council member Hakomovich, and was a unanimous vote of dissatisfaction with the performance of the mayor. So it's okay for the council to say, hey, you know, we have concerns. It's okay to do that. Thank you.
Anybody else? And anybody online wish to speak? Raise your hand, please. Okay, no? Let's move on. So. Thank you.
There is one person that has their hand raised.
Did they raise it up?
Yep.
Okay.
Debbie?
Debbie? You have to, you're on mute. You're gonna speak.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just, a couple of really quick things, and I've never done this before, but I did write, a couple of comments that, I saw were online. And I have to say, I really appreciate that the mayor has sent out these emails. Just personally to make me more aware of the complexities of the city government. And I've lived here since 1983, so I've been here for 42 years in the same house. And I agree with the one person who commented that this is really more about the quality of life that we have here than it is about the budget. And it's really hard to see all of the conflict on here. I personally stand with the mayor on what he has set out as far as not eliminating the one job. But I also am very curious when you have appointed members, how does one say, you know what, the appointed members maybe, or maybe somebody else should be in those positions? How does that work? For, you know, can citizens do anything if they're concerned about something, or what is the solution for that? I mean, it just sounds like everybody needs to just sort of talk to each other and work together and come to consensus here. The budget can be balanced by taking small amounts off of small line item things. And so I don't believe this is about the budget at all. I would just, I just want to protect our way of life in Clyde Hill, because this has been an absolute wonderful place to live. And the city gives us good services. So, you know, I just hope that everybody will come together, and it actually it does my heart good to see so many people there, because whatever all is going on, it's gotten people interested in city government. So thank you for doing that part of it, but hopefully this can be worked out so that it's the best for all concerned. End of comments.
Thank you, Debbie. Looking to see if there's anybody else who wishes to comment. You can lower your hand. Anybody else in the audience that wish to say anything? All right, let's move on to the agenda. We go to section 3.1, which is the reconsideration of the mayor's veto of the ordinance eliminating the city administrator position. At the February 10th special meeting, the city council passed an ordinance eliminating the position of city administrator. I vetoed that ordinance. As required by law, RCW 35A.12.130. Once vetoed, the ordinance comes back to the city council for reconsideration. Also, as required by law, if the ordinance upon reconsideration is approved by a supermajority vote, in this case would require 4 or more council members to vote to override, then the council can override by veto. If the proposed ordinance does not receive at least 4 votes, the veto is sustained and the ordinance fails. So the ordinance is before the council. Is there any discussion?
With respect to the reconsideration of the mayor's vote that Attorney Brubaker has recommended we put on tonight's agenda, I don't believe that the proper procedure to enact a veto has been followed. RCW 35A.12.130 says that for the mayor to veto an ordinance, the ordinance shall be returned to the council with written objections to be entered at large upon the journal. I don't believe that the emotionally charged political letter from the mayor that was sent to the community included in the packet passes the bar for formal notification to the council, nor do I see any evidence that the memo was lodged with the city clerk's office. Without formal notification, there's no cause for reconsideration.
The mayor is the mayor's veto message in the packet?
It is as a letter to the residents. It's not a letter to the council.
So the mayor vetoed the ordinance. He included a message explaining why. And the law requires that we proceed to a reconsideration. So I think it's a valid situation.
The comment? What happens if there's no motion and no second for this?
There has to be a vote. It's not a motion for reconsideration. It comes back to the council for reconsideration. The question is, the ordinance is before you. And the vote needs to be taken.
Can we table this for the end of the meeting?
Can we table that or are we required to handle it right now? Because you said this is
Uh,
the first item to go.
According to Robert's rules, which we're supposed to follow, it has to be handled promptly. So it should be your first order of business.
You're a better parliamentarian than I am. My recollection is that it's Robert's rules, subject to rules and guidelines, subject to vote of the council. I think this is a thorny, bizarre conversation, and I think that the audience would rather hear us work on other things. So I would ask that we take a council vote to move this to the end.
No, we want to see what happens.
Absolutely.
No, we don't.
So you believe that it was an improper and the attorney believes differently. I'm not, and I have no idea how to resolve that.
Your objection can be entered onto the record and take
Okay, so
whatever
you're
action.
looking for a motion, so you're looking for a motion to reconsider?
No, motion, the ordinance is represented to you. So
Got
you're
it.
going to vote on the ordinance itself, the ordinance that eliminates the position of the city
Got it.
administrator.
I shall,
That's what's,
great, so now we're looking for a vote?
yes.
Great, I shall abstain.
What is your? Thank you.
I would like to reiterate the comment that I made when the ordinance was originally proposed. That the mayor has not included in any of the communication that has gone out to the residents.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna ask you to speak up because I can barely hear you and I'm not sure.
I would, before I vote, I would like to reiterate the comment that I made the last time before the vote. And the mayor neglected to include my comment in any of the communication to the residents. For me, this vote is not about eliminating the city administrator position. This vote is about ensuring that there is professional leadership to lead the city. After having worked through the budget process and had many residents come to provide input last fall and having the input pretty uniformly ignored, I was trying to make I was trying to establish that we need professional leadership and we need a reset. I personally like the city administrator, but I don't think he's the right person for the job. So that being said, I guess I'm going to abstain.
Yes, question.
Will also speak to, you said that it was not filed with the city clerk and I signed it as city clerk.
That's not me.
Have anything to say? An abstain, abstention.
I'm abstaining.
Okay. Well, so. So there are no votes in favor. That would be in favor of passing the ordinance.
Fails for last again.
No votes against passage. The votes are not sufficient to override the veto, so the veto is sustained. The ordinance fails to pass upon reconsideration.
I will offer that I'm not sure if we need the executive sessions. Going to ask the other council members. I don't see the need for them. I don't know if you do.
Yeah.
So we can skip the executive sessions.
Section 5. All right, 5.1, professional leadership in the budget crisis. I know you submitted a memo on this and there has been a.
So here's, so just as a show of hands, I'm not sure, have people had a chance to read this document that's in the packet or not really, roughly? I'm getting head shakes in all directions. So there's a challenge here in that we don't really have great news coverage of what's going on in the city. And so what people find out about is, as Commissioner Wheeler said, You're correct. As Mr. Wheeler said, is often incomplete. And there's this document that's up there that you all can read. I'm not going to read it out loud. And I want to offer, what I want to offer here is the budget is a problem, right? There is an existential crisis. We can, when you talk about it in dollars, it looks like we have a lot. If you look at it in terms of run rate and burn, the estimates I've heard are 3 or 4 years. I think it's worth stepping back from the formality and just trying to get our heads around this. This isn't if we shave here and we nip here and we tuck there, we're set. We're not. Carl in the front row is nodding because he spent a healthy part of October, November, and December trying to get a toehold on the budget. I'm going to offer my personal experience on the budget, and it's not going to be super long. In 2021, as a resident, I served in the Budget Advisory Committee. And candidly, I'm not sure if other people here ever served in the BAC, it felt like take your kid to work day. There was never actually a substantive discussion of anything. It was here's what's going on, and here's a budget, but we definitely had anyone participate, and I was surprised. In 2022, in my first year on the council, I thought, wow, well, there's this deficit, and we're gonna figure this out. There has to be an adult somewhere. There has to be some progress on this plan. And it turned out there wasn't. But I was patted on the head and told, don't worry, your little resident head. We have trained professionals. It's all going to work out. That was 2022. By 2023, I realized that there was no plan, and there was no plan for a plan. And that year, the council voted, I think it was 4-0, on a resolution saying the city will only consider a budget that is either balanced or trending towards balanced or on the path to balanced. And I know that Councilmember Fried, I can't remember if he made the motion or if he just was part of the 4-0 vote for it. And then we enacted yet another budget where revenues and expenditures just didn't work out. That was 2023. But we did that because then Councilmember Friedman and then Councilmember Bruce Jones were going to go and work on it. And they said, oh, the stormwater utility will make this all great. And that brought us to 2024. In 2024, there was not an open budget process. 2024, the budget process was in stealth mode. There were not open public meetings. I think there were, Dr. Bruzak would remember, I think there were 3 or 4 residents on the BAC. I think I attended one of the meetings because a council member was absent. Councilmember Sinwell was, I want to phrase this politely because I can't remember his exact comment. I think he quit that effort out of frustration and being listened to. The budget process happened in stealth mode, and in September, it popped out of the other end, and there was a record deficit. And I think as a council member, I was surprised. It was the first time I'd seen it. And the message to the community, and I encourage you to talk to Carl here in the front row because he went to all these meetings. Dr. Bruzek was at these meetings. I remember these meetings. It really felt like torches and pitchforks. And it was, what's going on? Why isn't anything being done? And mind you, this is like the 4th year I'd watched this process. And the community asked for options. They asked, what's the plan? And can you show us what this looks like? And the answer was no. Take it or leave it. And that set a really distressing tone. So through that lens, in October, November, and December, the process that got us the 2025 budget was particularly thorny. And the question wasn't whether it was collegial or not. The mayor basically stopped. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You had I can bring up the statements you made. It was like, no, this is the budget and we're going to work on it next year. And I remember at some point, Councilmember Olson made pleas come back to the table and work with us on this. Anyhow, we enacted that budget 3-2. And for me, what was striking is that it was the third time I'd voted on a budget. It was the third time I'd voted for a budget deficit. And I had no confidence in it. There's no substance. There's no plan for a plan. There's no thoughtfulness. And the comments were all different flavors of kick the can down the road. There were comments from the city administrator around, well, we have these reserves and, these reserves will last us for a long time until we find a way to address our revenue problem, which is a nice way of talking about taxes and fees. Earlier this month, and I'm offering this because I promise I'm coming to a point. It's a great example of magical thinking and creative thinking. There was a task force that was kicked off. And the purpose of the task force was theoretically to come up with great ideas and address what we were going to do on this budget. And I wish Wayne Burns were here. I'm sure he would find a way without swearing to describe exactly how he feels about the process. I think a very polite term would be that he just didn't see any there in it. It just seemed like an extraordinarily slow way of getting nothing done. And during this task force meeting, a member of staff said, well, everyone likes the police. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. I can bring up the video if you'd like. Everyone likes the police. We just need to sell the community that this tax increase is to support the police. And then we can reallocate the funds wherever we want afterward. And I was aghast. And I actually asked a follow-up question to make sure I hadn't imagined that. And there was no change in the statement. I think that Mr. Wheeler, in his capacity as Mr. Wheeler, raised this. I can't remember if he used the word dishonest or if Wayne Burns used the word dishonest or immoral or unethical, because they watched the video and they were stunned by this. I'd love this task force to succeed. I called Councilmember Sinwell a week or two ago and said, hey, ultimately, this is all about the budget. So what's going on with the task force? And he says, well, it's kind of stalled. And I go, how is it stalled? And he goes, well, it's all me and the mayor. And I go, well, is city staff helping, hurting, or other? And he goes, oh, they're on the sidelines. I go, so how's the work getting done? He goes, well, the mayor and I sit down and we're a great team and we do the stuff. And when we need information or anything, that he goes and he talks to staff and we get that information. And I shook my head like, wow. And a resident who's on the task force asked what was going on. And so I sent him that recap. I included Councilmember Sinwell, who added color and ornament to it, but didn't fundamentally disagree with it. So if we want to talk about, what's this really about? The town of Yarrow Point has enacted budget austerity measures. I've spent quality time with the mayor of Yarrow Point, who's described to me how they're trying to make it work. The city of Medina, having had a huge tax increase a few years ago, is either running a deficit or is about to run a deficit. They're about to face this financial problem all over again, even after they did a huge tax increase. Fundamentally, small cities don't pencil out. They don't. And the state isn't making having small cities pencil out any easier. And the process that I saw for the last few years of kicking the can down the road seems to be continuing. And so this document emerged from a number of residents who struggled to get information from the city, or who participated in the meetings in the fall and said, what's going on? And it turns out that the city did a great job, has done a great job sending out communication when there are concerns about authority or funding, but not necessarily when there are other concerns of resident interest. And so they said, look, the way the conversation is being framed on the city's website and in these letters from the mayor, is that what's going on? And the document, which used to be the document that came out of that, which the mayor said, oh, this is another Hakamovich document. Well, that document started from public comments at the October 7th budget hearing. I went back and I watched about 20 hours of those meetings. And this document reflects comments made by residents at those meetings, by other council members during the course of all the budget meetings. And I tried to boil down what the issues were. What the issues were not at all personal. They were about the budget isn't going to get better with a nick here and a little bit of tucking there. And there's no plan, and there's no plan for a plan. And now just with all that context, our situation, budget deficits on the surface, the schism is messy and confusing. What's all this reasoned communication? The reasoned communication, no one on the council is going to say, we want to run without a city administrator. We want the city to have an effective administrator. But the feedback has been going nowhere. The feedback has simply been ignored and not acted on. It's been denied. And so the actions from the council, at some level, I'm going to suggest have been a success because you're here tonight. That makes me delighted. So on the surface, the schism appears to be messy and confusing. And I should point out that this is not so much my words or my phrasing. A bunch of residents contribute to this. I showed it to residents. They gave me a bunch of great feedback. This is far better than what I would write. Trust me. The council's primary concern is finding a sustainable path forward for the quality of life. And this starts with effective leadership. This includes a willingness to work collaboratively with the council. Councilmember Wisner-Slivka can talk about that collaboration. It's quite painful. Ruthlessly prioritizing the most important city services. The chair of the city's planning commission, Mark Cruz. The chair of the city's civil service commission, Brian Ouellette, and I had a conversation at Queen Bee. And it was a brilliant conversation because it basically boiled down to, why is Clyde Hill a city? And we talked about it. And the metaphor that came out of it was like in college. Okay, well, you major in something and you take other stuff too. And the gist of the conversation was, Clyde Hill is a city because we want a police force that knows that the community cares about them, that funds them, that makes donations to buy drones, right? We have a double major. The gist of the document was Clyde Hill is a double major, police and land use, view protection, sunlight protection, minimum lot size, all that stuff. It's a double major. We should be really great at those two things. And we should take everything else pass fail. And there are a bunch of different ways of doing this metaphor. It was fun to talk with the two of them. The other example was, oh, you're going to remodel your house. The front entry is going to be great. The kitchen is going to be great. Everything else can be from IKEA. No offense to IKEA. I like IKEA. But it's about ruthlessly prioritize the most important city services. Communicate effectively. I've been called out for my, I don't believe I'm saying it this way. I've been called out for the exercise of my First Amendment rights. I started exercising those First Amendment rights because I couldn't tell what the heck was going on in our city. And I couldn't get a straight answer. And so I just started reading everything on the website and trying to write out from a resident point of view what was going on. I think there's council consensus about effective city communication because council members Sinwell and Olson, who are not here, signed up to help the city do a better job communicating effectively. Here we are. So that's the situation. The budget crisis, again, of the unanswered questions in October, Wayne Burns asked a basic question. When do we run out of money? There has not been a whole lot of direct answer. Back of envelope 3 or 4 years. Maybe. What are the concerns? Well, what's the point? It turns out that a bunch of part-time volunteers have not solved the problem. Part-time resident volunteers for the 4 years, because I participated before I was on the council, have been unable to solve the problem. So there's a desire to say, maybe, just maybe, there is a professional who can help us through this. And for all of the statements and framing, it's a personal this, it's a that, people, whatever. What are the council's concerns? Well, the council's concerns were well enumerated during the previous mayor's term. That mayor had an extraordinarily busy, serious job in healthcare while COVID was going on. I do not envy her trying to be the mayor. And at the same time, there are a whole bunch of really questionable things that happened. And we have the city administrator we have. So what are the council's concerns with the city administrators? And I'll just stick with effectiveness. He watched the deficits. Absent from meetings, that doesn't have to do with attending the 1 January council meeting, the 1 January task force meeting. That was Councilmember Sinwell's comment to me when I said, hey, so how's it going? And he said, yeah, staff's on the sidelines. I went, wow, how is that leadership? Saying, hey, we can just, use these reserves until we figure out how to increase the revenues. Because if you listen to those meetings, there is absolutely positively no way that the city of Clyde Hill can do anything differently. Not at all. The way it's done is the way it must be done. Well, then the only thing we can do is raise taxes and fees. And been unresponsive to resident inquiries and concerns. It's not just the backlog of unanswered questions. It's trying to get an answer about anything and getting punted. And I'm going to leave it to Carl or Jared. We should, at the rate this thing is going, we probably will do maybe 1 or 2 more actual pieces of council business. Then I would love to adjourn this meeting and just have this be a conversation, candidly. I think it would be so much better and so much more effective than so much of the other council meeting time that we've had. We scroll down, if we just keep scrolling here, the council's way forward, that's fine, thank you. We're trying to find a way to serve residents. The council's recent use of its authority to eliminate the position of city administrator was a decision of last resort. Prior to exercising its authority, the council made several unsuccessful attempts to discreetly address a wide range of concerns with the current city administrator's job performance. We've been unsuccessful to get a more effective city administrator here. We can discuss the private negotiation that has been going on separately. Frankly, I have no issues with the mayor's veto. What I want to call attention to is the communication to the residents, how faithful and accurate those communications are. Councilmember Wisner-Slifka already mentioned basic factual statements that were not included in those letters to the community. And that just kills me. So after vetoing the measure, he sent this and you know what? The veto of the measure was fine. We put this item on the agenda about increasing the number of council seats. And candidly, it doesn't matter if we consider it. I had no desire to consider it. It served its purpose in the following way. It drove Mayor Friedman to actually speak and have a conversation with Councilmember Andonian about what to do about this professional leadership issue. And it drove him to send multiple letters to the community informing them that there was a meeting. As compared to all the other meetings we've had where it was just like, wow, looks like no residents are here. I guess we'll just kick the can down the road again. So that's the context for this document. Here's what I'd like to do with this document. I would like to ask the other council members, since this is a council meeting, are there any edits to this that you feel strongly about in order to sign your names to this document? And I'll start with you.
No.
Okay. Is there anything that you believe must change in this document? Must be removed, edited, paraphrased, et cetera?
No, and I will second the comment that you made where I see many phrases that I've seen that have come from residents along the way through the fall. So this is not just
Okay.
Councilmember Hakemovich pulling this together. This is a lot of thought from a lot of people.
Okay. So with 3 council members, a majority of the city council saying that this appears to be the consensus of the majority, I would like to ask the mayor to post this on the website of the city alongside his communications and to use the same instruments of communication that he's used to send this to the residents as well.
Okay, I will take that under consideration.
Does under consideration work for the crowd?
No.
Yes.
It's website.
Yeah, it's on the website and you've been talking for a long time.
Yeah.
Why don't you post it in your newsletter?
It's on the website. It's here. There it is. It's right here. This is the agenda. It's on the website. Here's the link.
Put it on the city's, at the same place where the mayor's communication is. And by the way, I'm sorry for talking for so long. There were a bunch of questions and I was trying to answer them. I apologize if it didn't work for you.
You're both.
Can I get a letter together and have that posted on the city website?
I'm sorry?
Can I get a bunch of people to sign a letter and have it posted on the city
Sure.
website? I mean,
Sure. This is a council statement.
And it's a public document in the packet. Here's the problem. No,
I move that we go on to item 5.2.
I'm gonna respond.
I'm sorry, it's a council meeting.
I'd like to hear it.
He can send you mail.
Are you the mayor?
Hold it.
You just-
No. Let him
You
go.
respond?
Let him go. Let him go. Fine.
Please, Mayor.
I think that you go.
Have a request
Here.
We want to hear you.
Listen.
I've been
Great,
hearing,
go ahead.
I've been hearing a lot of, I
I'm-
mean, this is my first time ever, actually. I've been, my name is Chin, okay? I've been living Clyde here for 20 years and, it's the first person said, everything's all fine, except that now it's gonna be into this meeting. A lot of things are just news to me, and I do agree with Mr. Wheeler is like, before I can make my comments or anything, I want to hear both sides of the story, he says, she. So I think, my eyesight is not very good. I think you made a very long monologue, and I do appreciate some part of that, but I love to see the numbers instead of description. Can you guys put the numbers? Say,
What
okay,
numbers?
how much things we put in this? This is the total we have. This is what we put. This is how much we're deficient. And then just trust your citizens, residents are mature enough to their judgment.
That's great. Will do.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Move on. Move on. Councilmember.
I do actually, why in a rush in the, like, this thing, we have to mix and just put the facts, put the number there,
Okay.
give people time to deliberate, then find a proper time for election. Then just let the citizens vote and this is
Okay.
came up.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm going to take my own advice and say, I think that we'd be better served if we stop the council meeting and just have this be a conversation. We can essentially dispense with the formality and the motions and all this other stuff. Adjourn the meeting. Stand up. Walk around and have the conversation or multiple conversations. Yes?
I would prefer that we continue to ask you questions We're the citizens.
Great.
You're our representative. We want answers too.
Okay.
I'd
Sounds
like to have you sit there and be asked questions. Does everybody agree with that? or-
So, hang on, for what it's worth, I'm happy to do that. Happy to do that. There are a couple of things that I just want to point out. This won't be a half-hour monologue, I'm sorry. There are two council members who aren't here tonight who would probably want to participate, is one issue.
We can redo it.
Great, happy to redo it. Happy to have an open town hall, right? Where all 5 council members are there and there's no move second, blah, 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 blah. Sorry?
You won't do it. You'll find any excuse. You won't do it.
Okay.
That's not.
Let him finish, please, everybody. Let him finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyhow, so I'm happy to do that. I want to be respectful about 2 things. One, there are 2 other council members who have very strong opinions, who would probably want to be heard as well, and I want to be fair to them. The other is, and I'm going back to the October, November, December budget meetings, is that there are people who really want to do that, and there are other people who kind of feel trapped and want to escape, and I'm not sure how to balance those 2 things. And so my attempt to basically do the adjourn and walk around is so that multiple conversations can happen at once. I'm happy to get a date on the books in terms of, I think, you and I talked about this. I think the next time, I think that all 5 council members will be in town is like March 21. So I'm happy to do it now. Sorry, go ahead.
I leave March 22. I think the next time we're all in town is April.
Sorry, go ahead.
So we're talking about the budget and I feel like I listened to a mission statement or filibuster. I'm sorry. That's just my impression.
Okay.
But I would love to hear your comments and the mayor's about specifics in the budget where you think there can be cost cutting or revenue generation. Either of those 2 are of interest to me when it comes to a budget.
Okay.
So it's your floor to say whatever you know about the budget where you would strive to make changes on those 2 items.
I have one question. You were mentioning Mr. Mayor, Steve Sinwell said something about a 1% limitation on revenues while inflation went up, like is part of this, a recent phenomenon from that, or are there limitations?
This is a state limitation that goes back to 2001. The state passed a law that says that cities cannot raise more than 1% per year.
Regardless of inflation.
Regardless of inflation, it's capped at 1%, and the only act. And for example, the way that Medina got around that is they did a levy lid lift. How many years ago?
5, 6.
They did a levy lid lift, which let them raise 5% the first year and 3% the second year or something. They have a great description on their website. But even with their levy lid lift and their sales tax revenue from the golf course, because they have an opportunity to get sales tax revenue in a way that we don't, they're still going to run out of money. So I really think that at some point, if we want to remain a small city, we need to start looking at different ways of doing business. And I would love to sit here and say that I've got the magic bullet answer to how we can do that, but not being a professional municipal finance person and not understanding the appetite for all the cities, for all the points communities to work together, that's going to require the professionals to sit down in a room and hammer that out.
So I think that has been the crux of our frustration, Carl.
Yes.
We have an agenda that we need to address if we're going to do it or not, and move past the issues there. And then I think we could talk all night long if that's what.
Okay.
But I think, so you wanted to move to 5.2. Do you want to continue?
At this point, based what's going here, I don't see the point of doing 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, blah, blah. I'm happy to, so we're not running away. I'm happy to adjourn this meeting, which gets us out of this procedural loop and have whatever, whether it's one-on-one or question, again, happy to have the conversation. I'm trying to be respectful of yes, sorry.
if we have three council members in the room having a dialogue about city business, we have a meeting, so we have to have minutes and we have.
Got it.
We have,
Well, my suggestion is,
it's not a meeting.
if we're ready to table the rest of the agenda, then it's fine. We can go out and have the conversations. But I want to make sure that we address what is on the rest of that agenda. I'm
Okay,
hearing,
so just.
I'm hearing that you want to table the rest
Sure.
of it.
Well, in terms of what's on the agenda, the one thing, and this is minor and shouldn't be that big a deal, discussion of possible council actions, rate mayor pro tem backup. I am going out of town next week for a couple of weeks. I'm the mayor pro tem for reasons. And in terms of everyone else's travel schedule, there's a document that's referred here. The mayor pro tem, when I'm not, when I am absent and cannot serve, the question is who it is. I think that we discussed it being Lisa, and I'm not sure if that's still of interest or if we're just doing it.
Oh, I thought that it automatically defaults to the next senior.
It does unless we choose someone.
And I don't think it's a fair discussion without the other two council members.
Okay. So we're not going to take action on 5.2. I'm happy tabling the rest of it. Then the question is, at this point, you're right. You're totally right. If there are three of us here, it's a public meeting. I don't know how town halls work. If there's, because I think there's our.
We can have a dialogue. We should continue to record the meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
And, appropriate minutes should be taken.
The point is you address the agenda. We'll just keep the meeting going and now we can open it up if that's what we're doing.
Can we address 6.1, which was the March 11th meeting with potential cancellation of? I haven't had
We should do that.
enough response to the Google poll to make a decision one way or the other, so.
So I'm out of town on March 11th. The rest of the council sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I thought I responded.
Not that I've seen.
I voted, so that on your poll.
Okay, just when we last looked, there were. Those were.
Right. Like I know I'm out, and the last time the council had this conversation, just in January, it was, yeah, you're going to go ahead and meet on the regular date. Okay. So if I have Wi-Fi, I'll show up, and otherwise I won't.
Appreciate it.
I guess we just move on to open up the meeting and we'll do that with everything else. So, all right.
Carl, you were about to say something.
I think I was responding to something that Councilmember Slipka just said about professionals making evaluations of the budget and all the options available to us. I think that was the crux of our frustration last fall when we were, I speak for myself because I only started attending sessions in October. I became aware of the budget deficit and an apparent lack of a solution being considered, either to raise revenue or to reduce costs, or both. I think the solution is both. Only the professionals and the city staff can come up with well thought out reason, numerically accurate. I've seen the budget tables. I went and sat with Lisa King, the finance director, at one point, and the tables made my eyes cross. They're very complicated. Only the staff can really evaluate options and provide them. And we went through multiple instances of asking for options, asking for what does it look like to city services if we reduce costs by this much? What the services look like right now? If we have a balanced budget, no increased revenue. What has the staffing looked like over the past years? Some of those questions got partially answered. Most of them didn't really get addressed at all. So it went over for several months of wanting to wrap our heads around what we can do with the budget, needing the city staff to take that leadership. They need to own the conversations. The city administrator needs to come with a whole bunch of options all sorted out to share with the rest of us to talk about and go through, because we can't generate those ourselves. None of you can, you don't have the time or the expertise. It has to come out of professional staff, and it wasn't coming. That's what inspired me to keep coming to meetings and be aware of what's going on. I kind of gave up for a while, so I wasn't here in January, February. But this meeting seemed pretty important, so I came back. I'm not a fan of the increasing the council and that kind of potentially non-democratic action. I think the consequences would be pretty negative. But I understand where they're coming from, because the council for many years, I know that people are criticizing Councilmember Hakamovich for his monologue here, but his history, from my understanding, is very accurate, aligns very well with my understanding of how things have progressed over the many years. It shows how many years we've tried to get a serious conversation on the budget and failed, and how feckless the city council has felt. I don't mean that as a negative insult to
Everything else seconds.
how powerless to affect any change. So they went for the only lever that they could, and it's an ugly lever to pull, but I don't think they wanted to vote again for another budget deficit. It just felt,
And there wasn't any disagreement on it. The disagreement has been, let me get through a couple of items here, because I think there's some things I need to make sure we respond.
Sure.
When we got through the end of the budget, the goal was to create a task force that we have created that include the public, that include the council, that includes staff, included me. We did that. That was agreed. The purpose of that was to work towards a balanced budget, 2026, and then future options to continue to have a balanced budget in further years. The first step of that process, that we didn't get to in the last meeting, was to talk about services. It is my opinion that in order to do cost cutting, we need to understand what we're cutting, why we're cutting, and whether the public is happy with it. And the services the city offers are terrific. We didn't get to that conversation. We kind of migrated back into how do we balance the budget?
Why did you not get to that? What happened?
The conversation evolved away from the first goal. That plan there's a plan that has steps. The first step was to discuss services. How do we go about considering whether saving money on services, reducing, eliminating, replacing with contractors, going to other cities, trying to merge? There's all kinds of ideas here. That was the idea. And that was the first step. We would get towards revenue options as we work through this process. I'm not sure, I'm concerned about our ability to move through that if we can't kind of follow a plan and get the public's input. Because revenue, the problem is we don't have enough revenue to meet the current expenses. So you can cut costs, you can raise revenue, you can do a combination of both. We're trying to look at those options. They can include a levy lift, they can use stormwater utility, maybe there's certain fee increases. There are some other options out there that I want to make sure we explore. There are also ways to invest some of our resources into ways to help save money, which we should do. So we went in with that agreement for that process. I'm worried about the process. I've been given up. The assumption that staff has not been involved is not accurate. They are involved. They're the ones, you're right. They have the experience, they have the detailed knowledge of the financials. Both the city administrator and finance director have that kind of knowledge. I work with them closely on some of these numbers. I work with them on options. I don't want to even assume that it is inaccurate to say they're not involved. Their involvement in their direct involvement, the first conversation about services is as much about costs, but more about what is it that's important to us in the community and move that forward. And the public needs to weigh in. From there, we start to evaluate options. If we want to talk to other cities about services, I need a city administrator. He has the best relationships with the other communities we have, and he knows that. If we want to talk about some of the options we can take on where the value of the dollars and how we're gonna do, they both get involved and we do that. And we've been doing. So I think it's a process, but I think the goals are pretty clear. And the number one, and as I said, the two goals are, number one, present a preliminary budget for 2026 so that we can go into the year with knowing where we're going to be. Number two, it becomes how do we take care of the sustainability over the future? Because that's, as costs go up faster than our revenue increases, what do we do there? This purpose of this meeting was an open dialogue. Councilmember Comich even said, we're here with an open mindset. So the fact that he would criticize one of the attendees from staff who was there, who came up with the concept, really was an idea. We're exchanging ideas. I knew what she was talking about when this was mentioned. I understood that. Costs go up. You have, and if you want to go to the voters for more money, and as if it's say a levy lift, you have to show them the reasons the costs are going up. It includes all aspects. There's no moving around money illegally or inappropriately. I understood what she was saying, and what really needs to happen when these types of misunderstandings occur, and what we miss as a group is if you don't get clarity on the day of the meeting and you're concerned about it, you sit down with the person to make sure you truly understand what was happening. And that's something we're lacking in amongst all of us. Getting together, maybe on a phone call, a meeting, doing things together that will do that. So the bottom line, though, is there are solutions to the budget process. And I want to make it clear that we need that these solutions, we live in a community with a lot of smart people, a lot of diverse options. And sometimes the taxes bother. You can do taxes, you can do fees, you can do anything we can do. And getting to that point is, as I said, is a process. But we do have the roadmap. We have a task force that is intended to get public comment, input, and further information. Wayne Burns asked me to send out some a piece to the community to fully explain the budget process and what the problems really are. Provide that to the community. I think this is. And I said I would get that done. Been busy the last couple of weeks trying to work through all these things, and we're having that problem. Yeah, Donna.
Hi, Donna. I really appreciate what you said, that working through any controversy before it's communicated out is something I would love to see. Instead of divisive communications, I would love to see a unified message from the whole council.
And that's my issue with putting both our documents on the website and further. The issue isn't that you put yours and I put mine, but that's all we're doing. You're telling us an opinion and I'm telling you an opinion. And now there's no consolidation to that opinion.
So can I ask why there wasn't consolidation before your document went out?
I don't understand your question. What document are you talking about?
So you've got your opinion. Councilmember Halkamovich has represented the council's opinion. So shouldn't those two documents have been reconciled before anything went out to residents?
And that, I mean, yes, they should have been. We should do that. That's what we ought to be doing. Reconciling those types of documents. So you want to write that document, but the document was out. So I saw the document and I responded. And in the same respect, you're asking it to be, that is exactly what we should be doing as a team. This should be a team.
Okay, and as a team.
And we can disagree.
Okay.
There's nothing, the problem is not the disagreement. The problem is understanding how to come to a solution. And that's what we're not able to do right now. We should be able to do that. Go ahead.
Part of what I hear over and over again is we're working on the problem, we're doing something. In my experience in business, if this group was running a business, you'd be bankrupt right now. You gotta somehow put some schedule in and put some reasonable tasks in to get done in a certain time. Or you just,
And that was in the task force that we.
but why didn't it happen? I've heard this the
We had
last,
the first meeting and the process runs into about June.
okay, all right. And there's another thing. You're gonna talk to the staff here and everything else. That's a conflict of interest. Because if they decide that they aren't doing their job, they're not gonna say, hey, this person could do the same job. If you look at what's happened now, the staff is what, 3 times what it used to be? And we're running the same amount of people here? So tell me how that works and what you're paying for and everything else. So you need somebody, just a minute,
That's the number you said.
you need somebody independent looking at some of this stuff. And part of it is you got a conflict of interest is where you're getting some of the information. I mean, in a regular business, you have what's called an audit and they look at what's going on. And they look what's going on. And it's not the guy over here telling you what he wants to say, whatever. You've got somebody independent and some of the things that you're doing, you're not coming up with a solution because you're hearing the same thing. We can't cut here. We can't do this. And what's happened is the whole thing has risen and you don't have the revenue to support it. You're out of business. You're in liquidation right now. You just don't know.
I understand your comment. I don't agree. One quick comment. Didn't you discuss bringing in an outside group to look at that?
It was October.
Sounds expensive.
That was what we,
Yeah.
that was the consensus.
So I have one comment, or request. I don't know if it's a good idea or not. But you said, you'd have the meetings and you'd do the review and we'd see you in June. And I think I heard a sigh, everybody, the air was knocked out. We've got to wait to June. That's just a terrible time frame. If we could simply hear the things that we're interested in, I think in general, are very specific things. We're looking at the cost of tearing up the streets. We're looking at the cost of garbage. I want to hear things like that. I don't want the solution. I want to hear the debate. And so along the way, my request is you say, well, I had a meeting with this department and this is what we're spending and this is blah, blah, blah. And they say there's nothing we can save, and just let people chew on that. If you're going to wait till June, then we're all going to hope for a really great solution.
Fair enough.
And it's not probably going to happen.
Let me clarify. The process would include various meetings in which we have certain discussions along the way so that we can come to a final conclusion. And it kind of divided itself. Councilmember Sim was here, he helped me here. But it's divided into the various pieces that we need to look at. There's a cost, there's services piece. There's more specific possible answers to some of the cost problems. There's what are our revenue options and how do we find more revenue? And those pieces should come along. The meetings are open. We have set them up. We have a task force, but they are recorded and available and people can participate. The public can participate and listen.
And their full reports on how far they are with each of the projects.
And then there is intended to be a follow-up report, usually in the council meetings we would have. That's the goal. Trying to do. Go ahead and back.
Name Tandy Verdi, I lived here for 5 years now. I attended a couple of the meetings last September, October, and November. And then I remember a number of us asked questions that were referred to here tonight. How this was going to happen, or how the deficit. I haven't seen any answers over the last few years, few months, 5 months long here. I don't have a lot of hope from what I heard tonight. Observation. I got my tax statement yesterday.
You want my hearing aids?
5% of that statement goes to Clyde Hill. 5%. less than $1,000 out of is what Clyde Hill gets, from what I can tell from my tax statement. We go through a recession, all these big houses don't get built. Everything's gonna go, okay. That's where part of the revenue. So I think there's a problem that's gotta be dealt with. It's gotta be dealt with professionally. I don't have the answer for that, but it's pretty obvious. You can't sustain yourself when you've got the 1% limit on your revenue. Inflation goes to, even if it's at 2 or 3%.
It's part of the problem.
I wish, we have different points of view and everybody agrees that you won't want to be, merged in the Clyde Hill just disappears and gets merged into Bellevue, right? I mean, we want to keep this, and we have people have strong views. I wish you could just like have competing proposals from, I'm talking to, but of course, people are volunteers and you're not professionals, you got other things to do. But I mean, in a perfect world, we'd have like, okay, there's somebody that's assisting to come up with numbers and stuff, and you have two competing things that without having to sit at meetings and nothing ever gets agreed to because you can't agree on A and B and C and D, and you never get, like, one person just comes up with the plan and there's another plan, there's 2 or 3 plans that are by, different folks, and then they start debating and talking about it before people and talking about something concrete instead of, oh, we're having another meeting about this. Maybe that's completely not possible, but I would love that.
That's the menu of options we've been.
The menu of options. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're working towards that in this task force.
And that was one of the things that myself and a number of other residents asked during that October process was, can you just please give us a budget that says what would get cut?
Right.
And I just heard you describe kind of what I asked and Carl asked and a number of other people asked. And I kind of heard you describe, you tell me when I'm overstepping what I heard, is, not all the part-time guys, but you want somebody really good to put that forward.
Right.
And I do too. And I look to the most senior paid leader to do that. And that's what I'm still looking for. I still haven't seen a budget that says, this is what would happen if we cut. In this case, I think it came down to an extra, I'm gonna give this $200,000 or $300,000. So I'm so glad we had this meeting. And everybody got what's on their chest off their chest. And I just really am impressed with what you're saying in terms of what you're hoping for and looking for. You got there in a whole lot shorter time than a lot of people did.
Well, it's just, everybody's here is trying to do good. What threw me, and I did this diatribe when we started this, right, was, I know the goal is like the same goal that I'm saying right now. It's let's deal with the problem and not kick it down the road. But, I read what you put together and stuff, and it's like, whoa, we're proposing all this stuff. We would never actually do it, but it's like burning the city down, and it's like, well, because we can't get attention and we're not doing, getting the folks involved, we're going to say that we're going to fire this person. We're going to expand the council. I mean, you lose all credibility. Like you had completely lost all credibility with you. And I didn't even know you. And I read everything you did and what you were doing and what you did. And you're reasonable people. And I would prefer that you were involved in the process as a citizen of Clyde Hill, so that there's more diversity of opinions. But, but that's how a lot of people came to this, thinking, oh my God, these people are trying to burn the city down and basic services aren't going to work. Now, I understand your point is at least it got us here, but it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. It really was a really bad taste in my mouth. And that's why many of us were.
I wish that there was a way to have cracked the nut last fall to get people here, because we had countless meetings and we asked for residents to show.
Yeah. If you don't mind, let's let Councilmember Andoni, he hasn't really had a chance.
Thank you. First off, I want to thank you all for coming. I appreciate your time and your comments. And I realize that there's been a little emotional fervor in all this, and I certainly appreciate where that's coming from. I've been here in Clyde Hill for 21 years. Carl's my neighbor. He knows me. I ran as a write-in candidate for mayor in 2012 because of many of the same issues we're facing today. I came to the budget meetings, Carl and other people this last fall, and obviously shared a lot of the same sentiments that have been expressed about the process, the deficit, et cetera. I ran for the position because I feel that I can work with the other people on the council. I have a good relationship with the mayor. In fact, over the last 2 weeks, we've, I think, had a lot of substantive discussions. We've gotten to know each other in a very positive way. This is not an easy process. I know that tonight's agenda was a little bit of a nuclear button. The unfortunate situation, as far as that goes, in my estimation, is the council has very few levers that it can pull to exert influence over some of the decisions. And so this was one of our few options to do so. Is it distasteful? Yes. Is it unappealing? Of course. But it's almost like a cathartic attempt to try and get things back to a point where we have to deal with the problem. And that's part of how it's all came about. I do feel that communication is a substantial issue. The mayor's touched on it. I am very firm in my belief that we will work hard to repair that within the council. We are all on board with building a better town for all of you, but the issues that we are facing are existential, and they are not just for Clyde Hill. If you open up the news, you will see Enumclaw filing for bankruptcy over a slightly different lawsuit. Issues in Des Moines, Edmonds. The problem is that revenue and cost of compliance from the state is escalating far faster than our budgets could ever keep up with. And it is a very, very unfortunate fact that the city administration is going to be in a very tough position to figure out how to fix that without all of us coming to all of us saying, pull out your checkbook. That is the unfortunate reality. Before we do that, we owe it to everybody to go through how we spend your money, what we spend it on, and what the priorities are. And until we have gone through that exercise, we should not ask the residents for more money. So I'm committed to that process, and I believe that everybody else is here, but we probably have a slightly different viewpoint on how to get that done. And that's something we are going to all have to work through to achieve. Ma'am, you have a question for me?
Well, I just quickly wanted to, on history of Clyde Hill, back in 67, when we arrived, there was just a little old shack house here with an older woman, and she was the girl Friday running the show. And you had Medina, and you had the Yarrow and Hunts Point and Clyde Hill, and they were all designated as towns according to the RCW. And as the area began to evolve, they had to do something else, and they were designated then as cities, all of them. And it was because they could get more money from the state, which helped this budget thing. Back when I was on the planning commission, we had a balanced budget here. And I don't know where things went wrong. I mean, I was working for 45 years, so I missed out maybe on some things, but we need to run just like our own homes. You got X number of bucks coming in, and you can't have twice that going out. So somewhere you need to sit down, and the people of the city here need to get in and get some educated discussions going. And I think this idea of having a town hall meeting or something where we just, brainstorm or whatever to help. You know, we're all part of this. We're the ones that are, you know, financing the whole thing. So I don't know how other people feel, but
Quite frankly, I'm sorry, just real quick, I'm impressed that you're having this whole conversation and everything's going on. And it's before we've used up our reserves. I mean, let's just the natural course of things with like politics and cities is like, you know, you coast along until absolute last minute and then it's like you have no choice, back against the wall. And I mean, at least this is going on now with a decent amount of time, which is pretty impressive. And like, you know, from a personal perspective of just dealing with the city, like I hope this doesn't become like Bellevue and things take so long to get anything done or anything approved or anything, you know. I mean, you know, personally, the city is run well, but I understand it's like got a revenue problem and you got a cost problem. But I was obviously wanted to continue, and it's really a positive thing that, you know, we're having this discussion now and not 3 years from now.
Yes, sir. I have a couple comments. I've listened and I'm very glad that the communities come together and you guys have decided to stay here and we've had a dialogue. I think this is like a really healthy thing, even though I don't agree with everything. I don't think that it's a victory that you got people here by threatening to basically upend and, you know, disrupt our government structurally with no real due process. I don't find that to be honorable. I think it poisoned the well that you guys did that. So I'm asking you, please don't do that again.
Okay.
I mean, I think you've gained back a lot of trust tonight from me and the other people here by staying and having this dialogue, but that caused a lot of damage. As far as cuts, I don't know what's been going on, but I keep hearing this theme of the city administrator needs to find the cuts. And I don't agree with that philosophically. We've elected you to make the tough decisions. And I don't care if someone's appointed. I'm sorry. There is a process to put you in these seats. That was an open process too. Anyone could have applied. That doesn't hold any water for me. But I think the city administrator needs clear directives. And that means saying, what will it look like? How many police do we have to cut to balance the budget? What do we have to do to public works to balance the budget? If you can't get more revenue, I think it's incumbent upon you to ask them, and they can speak. I don't know if this is appropriate, but I think that Mr. Rolla should, if he wants to, have an opportunity to speak to them. But I think that maybe you've already been doing this. But I think specific directives for you guys to evaluate these options, you people, sorry. I don't think you can just say, oh, we need an administrator who comes up with a plan. I don't see that as the city administrator's job. Thank you. Appreciate you listening.
Okay. I have,
You want to say something after, but I'll let her. Pass.
the one thing that is really bothering me is that as I attended the meetings in the fall and as I listened to tonight, I've heard several times that the information is not provided to the council. What they ask for, they don't get. If I understand that correctly, how do we correct that? Because that needs to be done. We need the information.
Fair question. And I think we're without going back to the past, because we can both argue about, well, we gave you this information, we provided this, we asked for that, we did this, you didn't do this, you didn't do that.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get past. That's the history. We have some disappointment in what happened. Fair enough. Let's move forward. That's what the purpose of the task force is to provide that information. There's multiple pieces. One is get more, it's council's budget at the end of the day. They used it. They used it to eliminate the indirectly, or attempted to use part of the budget options to eliminate city administrator positions. They would take the funding out. It's their budget. They have to approve the budget. That was the process we went through in the fall. To the extent that we did. Now we're in a new process. Moving forward, trying to find the answers to to 2026 and the future. The question becomes providing that kind of detailed information as gets requested, as we bring up, following through on the questions that are answered and the ideas that are there in a sufficient way that we all agree. The goal has got to be to come to a consensus, not to disagree at the end and have half of us say one thing and the other half say the other. It's not going to help. It's not going to get us to where we need to go. That's what I want to do. So, again, we can go back and forth on what happened in the past, and clearly there's disappointment. I want to learn from it. We'll move past.
There is a backlog of questions, right? There's someone provided a comment, I forget who it was, but proposed
Yes,
constructing a table of questions asked. And when.
that is part of the task force.
Okay.
Councilmember Sidwell is keeping track of it. Those are to be answered as we work through the process. I think the discussion we had last time was they would be answered, as the answers.
So before we've lost about half our people, but I just want to say thank you all so much for coming. I think this has been amazing. It's been painful for probably everybody. But I also want to say out loud, we've touched on the next meeting of the Sustainability Task Force a few times. It's March 6th at 2 p.m. We will advertise that. We've been trying to get the word out better, then we've got some new tools and things to get better messaging out to the residents. So March 6th at 2 p.m. is the plan right here and online. That's what we've been doing. And lastly, I also do want to, we did, as part of this last budget, we did cut back one FTE and from the Public Works Department and from one of our crew, the arms and legs of our city. And we also removed a half-time intern position that we had as well. So we have, in essence, already reduced some level of service just in this current budget.
Let me add what we're trying to accomplish in the next task force meeting, actually, because based upon what happened in the first meeting, Councilmember Sidwell and I agreed, talking with staff, that we would take a different approach. What we want to do is start to provide scenarios in the upcoming budget that would identify where the gaps are, what the options are to either raise money, where the money can come from, or cost to. So we can have a discussion about it. So that's the goal on the next meeting. So here,
Which meeting, the general council meeting or the sustainability?
Sustainability, March 6th meeting.
Harvey wants to say goodnight. But I just have to say, it is removing a unfilled position, which I think it was. Tell me differently. Mr. Mayor, I think it was an unfilled position, or Mr. Administrator.
It was an open that we had a choice to fill.
Didn't fill it.
Let go and not replaced.
Okay, so it was not hired to an open position and a part-time intern. And I think I heard the words, some services have been cut. I haven't felt it. Have you had any complaints of services cut? And the reason I'm doing this is because I have been very adamant throughout the discussions back in the fall that losing people does not necessarily equate to services cut. And until that mindset changes, and I did not hear that mindset change, just heard these people are gone, services, I didn't hear the other. I didn't hear services are still the same. So I hope my point is clear.
Your point really is, did what the residents receive change based on the number of people that we have? That's where you're referencing. Fair comment. That's that.
So don't position it that way.
Okay.
It proved to me that services got cut, darn it.
I'm a staff member here, but I do a lot of the communications for the city. And just to illustrate this point, we had plans to increase our communications to the community, to do more, to talk about the upcoming meetings. We have a brand new website to do more news stories in depth about our budget situation and everything else. Our part-time intern was an integral piece of that plan. And when that person got cut, it really impacted our ability to communicate with residents. So that's just one example of a way that not having the people and not having the resources makes the job a lot more difficult.
I don't want to do a debate over this. I'm here as a resident. I ask for a change in how things are presented. And I will go on to just say I've fired a lot of people. I've been in a lot of situations where we've had to take headcount down, and all the time the company has gotten stronger.
Yeah.
So I don't want to have that debate.
I don't think we were trying to debate. I think you asked the question of, or you stated that my statement said that I did not address whether or not people had seen the reduction in services.
Right. And what I just heard wasn't that you've seen a reduction in services. What I heard is you haven't seen an increase in services. That's what I heard.
It's certainly taken us a lot longer to clean up after storms and things like that, right?
You know, we can, yeah, I mean, it's a stormy day. It's a good time to bring that up.
Yeah.
But it is, for me to trust the process, the language has to be clear. And it has to be factual. And questions that are repeatedly asked by residents from a bunch of different residents deserve an answer. That's how my trust gets built back. That is more of a trust issue to me than anything else that's happened.
Part of what if we come to the meeting on March 6th and so forth like that, and will there be information that we can actually respond to and have an input to, or is it just come and listen to what we're doing? That's a question.
Yes.
Answer.
Sure. So if you,
so I make sure.
if you go on recent meetings, and I'm looking at one from, December 25th, it'll give you like the 5-year projection of the budget with different segments. And that would be a really good page to review to fortify yourself with what we're facing going forward.
But I think to David's point, are we going to have the scenarios and are we going to discuss the scenarios, for example, or is there just going to be the scenarios are going to be presented and there's no opportunity for discussion?
So the purpose of the first meeting we had on, and this is what we attempted to do, was to provide an agenda, provide a packet of information in advance that we could use to discuss. It's the same thing we're trying to do here.
Okay.
So that's what we're trying to do.
Is there also some schedules, some deadlines, some bullets and so forth? So we actually see some actual progress and something going on similar to what, I'm trying to say, if we just let it happen, it isn't happening. Is there some reason that we have to say, this is a
There's a timeline and plans that we're trying to, that we intend, all that are our goals to meet.
But do we also, because one of the things that's happened here is we're all, you're all volunteers and so forth, so you have a limited amount of time and so forth. So does it make sense that maybe somebody has to put some of the revenue from the city back into the work that you're doing to get it to actually happen? Because if it doesn't happen, we're in the same boat. And, sometimes money well spent does not look exactly like we should. So are we pinching the pennies over here to save here, but we aren't even seeing what the savings are?
That's a fair question. I understand exactly what you mean.
And that's maybe if somebody said, well, if we have some outside people look at it, it's expensive. Well, we have a lawyer. He's not doing it for free. And the reason we've got him is we're paying for his expertise.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to do that. And that's why companies get audited to keep them on this.
As a group, we have to make that decision. That would be a council ultimately.
I'm just saying.
I'm not blaming anybody. The point is, yes, it's come up before and I understand.
Looking outside of the box.
A quick question of, this is a 1 square mile city, basically. Are there very many other cities and similar to this, like in Washington, or is that, how unusual is Clyde Hill?
In terms of financial
In terms
situation.
of, yeah, like being independent, running their own, like having their own police force, is this really, I mean, there's Medina, but is this really uncommon? It seems like it would be,
More and more.
because it doesn't pencil out.
I got here a month ago, okay, and since I got here, we've had to deal with middle housing. I mean, the impact that the state is presenting to small towns like ours is what's happened to small business over the last 20 years, right? The cost of being competitive, the cost of complying with everything has become more and more onerous.
That's why I left California. Yeah.
And so we're now faced with all of those things. And so what I've learned and experienced firsthand is that that's not really slowing down. And so it's going to absorb more of our budget. It's going to be harder for us to remain independent. However, my belief is, and I think the mayor and everybody else's, is that we want to work to maintain our independence, because that will only make us more appealing to residents who will want to live here. But it is a very, very steep hill to climb, and the impacts
And it takes,
are a real challenge.
in addition to the information that we gleaned and worked together to identify the decisions we made, ultimately the community's going to have to tell us if they like it or not. Which is what we need to do.
But back to Brad's point about the financial sustainability of small cities, I believe that big cities are going to hit the same issue. The only reason why they're not hitting it now is they can duck under sales tax. So they've got a longer run, right?
Oh, the
One-
retail
one-
sales tax,
Yeah.
because there's, none of that.
There's one other thing, and that is Clyde Hill is very unique. We do not have any bonded debt. Almost every other municipality has bonded debt. Seattle and King County are in deep red ink.
Detroit, Cleveland.
And so we should be fortunate, but part of why I ran was that I did not want to see us squander the opportunity to stay ahead in this race. We still have reserves. We need to do the right thing by all of ourselves, because we're all residents, and maintain a budget that doesn't bleed us to death in the process. But it's going to be a real tricky thing to navigate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I think we're ready to adjourn. Thank you for your comments, everybody. We are adjourned.
6 to 2. March 6th at 2.
I don't want to do one.